Hello, if you are new here, my name is Kaylee, and on this channel we cover all things true crime, travel, lifestyle, and just generalized vlogs. But you have stumbled across our true crime section of our channel, so I just want to give you a warning. If you think that true crime is not something that you are going to enjoy, or there might be details of a true crime case that you're not comfortable with, please click to another video. I'm sure there'll be something here on the channel that you will enjoy. Today's case is about Sarah Cafferkey, who was a young woman that lived in Bacchus Marsh. Now, she was brutally murdered. So today, our case is all about her. So again, if you think that true crime is not for you, please switch to another video. And we're going to jump straight into today's case. Sarah was born on the 20th of June 1990. She was the only child born to Adrian and Noelle, and they lived currently in Bacchus Marsh in regional Victoria. Now, at just 9 months old, the family decided to move from their home in Bacchus Marsh to Queensland because Adrian had work commitments that prompted their move. After just 2 years, Adrian and Noelle decided that they were going to split up. So Noelle decided to take Sarah and move back to Bacchus Marsh in Victoria. Throughout Sarah's younger childhood, she would travel frequently back to Queensland to visit her father, and her father Adrian would also travel back to Victoria to visit Sarah. Once Sarah did get a little bit older, the visits were less frequent because Sarah decided she wanted to hang out more with her friends during school holidays and things like that. But they did have a great relationship. When Sarah was 15 years old, she was diagnosed with chronic asthma, and during year 10 and 11 of high school, it really wreaked havoc. She would miss lots of days of school because of the illness. She would be hospitalized and things like that. It got to a point where year 12 through high school, she decided she was going to try and do homeschooling just so that she could avoid getting asthma and having asthma attacks at school. She was already missing so much of school that it was probably easier for her to do homeschooling. Sarah had expressed that she had a great interest in the justice system, and that's what she was starting to pursue. But during this time when Sarah was starting to suffer with her health, she was also starting to suffer with addiction issues. Now, Sarah, even though she was still at school, was starting to consume drugs and would drink on a regular basis. She also really started hanging out with the wrong sort of crowd, and she was starting to get into a little bit of trouble. But Sarah, she was aware of her addiction issues, and in August of 2012, she admitted herself into a detox program. The program lasted for a week, and once she came out, she was renewed with the prospect of being clean and healthy. But unfortunately, after 3 weeks, she did relapse, and she confided in her mum that she had relapsed and was back on drugs. In September of 2012, Sarah met Stephen Hunter. They met through mutual friends, and they sort of kicked it off straight away. Now, it wasn't a romantic relationship or anything like that. There was a bit of an age difference, and Sarah saw Stephen more as a father figure. They would go out and party and do drugs together. He really wasn't a good person to be around, but Sarah seemed to have a connection with him. Stephen Hunter was born on October 6th, 1965, and at the time of Sarah's death, he was 47 years old. Now, Stephen, he had a very big criminal history, and it is not known to what extent of his actual criminal history that Sarah knew. We are aware that Sarah knew that he had gone to prison, but we don't know if Sarah knew what exactly for. Going through a little bit of Stephen's criminal history. Now, I'm not going to go through all of it, but here are just some of the key things. He was first convicted in 1983 for burglary and criminal theft and criminal damages. In 1984, he was convicted of being on somebody's property unlawfully. On April 9th, 1986, at the age of 19, Jacqueline Matthews was stabbed to death by Stephen after she had rejected his advances. In 1988, Stephen was incarcerated for this offence, and he was given 13 years. Now, in 1990, he escaped from Pentridge Prison and was only given an additional 4 months sentencing after he was recaptured. In December of 2000, he is paroled, but it is only in 2002 that he kidnaps a man and bashes him. Obviously, when the police find this out, his parole was cancelled. After again being paroled, he is again arrested for driving offences, but fails to appear in court. Again, being arrested for not appearing in court, he is then placed in prison for 4 years. In 2009, he was then released. So from his release date in 2009 until the 1st of November 2012, Stephen was on parole, which meant that Sarah had been brutally murdered only 10 days after Stephen's parole period had ended. So after Sarah met Stephen in the September of 2012, the pair would go out and party, they would do drugs and drink. They would frequently stay at Stephen's home and at another acquaintance's house in Point Cook, which is a neighbouring suburb sort of thing to Bacchus Marsh. But on the 10th of November 2012, Sarah's life was cut dramatically short. Now, Sarah would stay away from home multiple nights in a row. It was not a rare occurrence, but she would always be in contact with her mum, Noelle, and they would text or talk. Like, they had a very good relationship at this point. Now, once Sarah hadn't contacted Noelle for 2 whole days, Noelle started to get very worried and concerned about Sarah's well-being and where she was. So at this point, Noelle contacts the police to issue a missing persons report, and the investigation begins. Just 2 days after Noelle contacts the police in regards to Sarah being missing, the police post an alert to the public for information or if anyone knows of Sarah's whereabouts. Then 6 days after Sarah's disappearance, her car is found in Maribyrnong, which is about 40 kilometres from their home in Bacchus Marsh. And then on Saturday, November the 15th, the police execute a search warrant at Stephen's home. Now, Stephen was not there at the time of the search, but police went in and they discovered that it had looked like the home had attempted to be clean. The walls and the floor, etc. had like they'd been scrubbed down. But after the forensics team had come through, it was discovered that there was blood on the wall, on the floor, on a bar stool, on a dumbbell, and on a kitchen knife. The very next day, the police go and also search the property in Point Cook that the pair would frequent. And it's here that the investigators realise that they can smell decay. And it wasn't long before they discovered where the smell was coming from. They had discovered a wheelie bin inside the garage at the property. Discovered inside the wheelie bin was cement, so the police took it away for forensic investigation. They discover that Sarah's body has actually been placed inside the cement inside the wheelie bin. On Tuesday, November 20th, the police finally catch up with Stephen and he is taken into police custody. During his interrogation, it isn't long before Stephen crumbles and admits to police what has happened. Now, the following information is what Stephen claims happened. Again, we don't know 100% if this is true, but this is just what Stephen claims to have happened on the day of Sarah's death. Stephen claims that on the day of Sarah's death, Sarah and himself were at a local bottle shop. They were getting alcohol to drink throughout that afternoon. Once they returned back to Stephen's apartment, he started to tidy up and clean up his apartment, and he found a syringe. Now, he claims that this syringe was from his ex-girlfriend, and during sort of mumblings to himself, he claimed that his ex was a junkie. At this time, Sarah believes that Stephen has called her a junkie and she reacts violently. Apparently, Stephen claims that Sarah attacked him. He fell to the floor, and when Stephen tried to get back up, Sarah came over a second time and tried to hit him again. It was at this point that Stephen said he just seen red and went into a fit. He attacked Sarah. Now, remembering that Sarah is much younger and much smaller than Stephen at this point, there was no way she was ever going to be able to completely defend herself from someone like Stephen, who was much bigger than her. But he claims that she managed to get him on the floor. He then claims that once he did get up, he attacked her, and during his fit of rage, he managed to grab a knife and stab her multiple times. Now, during this commotion, there were actually 2 young girls who were playing in the courtyard that was just outside of Stephen's apartment. Now, later on during the trial, they do admit to hearing screams and pots and pans being sort of thrown or clattering to the floor, which does coincide with the fact that the attack happened in Stephen's kitchen. Stephen then claims that he leaves the apartment, and during this time he sends Sarah random text messages to try and cover his tracks. He then goes to a friend's house where he explains that he does have a dead body that he needs to get rid of, but he claims that he did not kill Sarah, that somebody else had during a house party, and now he was left to deal with the body. This friend agrees to help them to the point of going to Bunnings and getting cement, lime, and hydraulic acid. But when Stephen asks this friend if he could dump the body at their rural property, which apparently was extremely large, the friend said no, absolutely not. So we're not sure what extent this friend was going to help with the cement and all that sort of stuff, but he most certainly went to Bunnings with Stephen because he was captured on CCTV. It wasn't until the next day that Stephen decides to move Sarah's car. He takes it to Maribyrnong and dumps it. At this point, Sarah's body is still in his car's boot. Obviously, Sarah's body was starting to decay and the smell was getting really bad. And this is what prompted Stephen to really get a plan and start deciding what he was actually going to do with Sarah's body. Stephen never actually explains why he decided to go to the Point Cook residence, but he does end up going there and puts Sarah's body into a green wheelie bin. He then puts in the cement mixture and the lime into the wheelie bin and lets that set. Stephen then claims that the wheelie bin was too heavy and too hard to move, so he just left it in the garage of the property in Point Cook. During Stephen's trial, the judge noted that he had really manipulated the parole system and he had really manipulated his caseworkers into believing that he was trying to be reformed or that he was reformed. And on August 21st, 2013, Stephen was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Now, being from Victoria, when I was researching this case, it did hit very close to home. I just hope that I have done this case justice. I would like to send my deepest condolences to Sarah's entire family, her community, her friends, and just anybody that was affected by this horrible tragedy. If you have not hit that subscribe button, please consider hitting it. We do come out with new cases weekly. Please remember to take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!